Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana vrajana ranjana. Yashodanandana vrajana ranjana. Yamuna tira vanachari. Yamuna tira vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajākacārya Ashtottara Satashrishimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Samstapakacharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, in the matter of scheduled incarnations, text 30. Grinita yad yad upabandham amushya mata shulbam sutasya na tutat tad amushyamati yaj jimbrato sya vadane bhuvanani gopi samvikshya shankita mana pratiboditasit grinita yad yad upabandham amushyamata shulbam sutasya natu tad tad amushyamati yajrimhato syavadane bhuvanani gopi samvikshya shankita mana pratiboditasit grinita yad tad upabandham amushyamata shulbam sutasya natu tad tad amushyamati yajrimhatosya vadane bhuvanani gopi samvikshya sankita manaha pratiboditasit grinita yad upabandham amushyamata shulbam sutasya natu tad tad amushyamati yajrimhatosya vadane bhuvanani gopi samvikshya shankita mana pratiboditasit yajrimhatasya vadane nani gopi vikshya shankita mana pratiboditasit Matajis. Grinita, by taking up. Yat that, whatsoever. Upabandham, ropes for tying. Amushya, his. Mata, mother. Shulbam, ropes. Sutasya, of a son. Na, not. Tu, however. Tat, by and by. Amushya, his mati was sufficient, yat that which jirmbataha opening the mouth, asya of him, vadane in the mouth, bhuvanani the worlds, gopi the cowherd woman, samvikshya so seeing it, sankitamanaha doubtful in mind, pratibodhita convinced in a different way, asit was so done. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. When the cowherd woman, Krishna's foster mother Yashoda, was trying to tie the hands of her son with ropes, she found the rope to be always insufficient in length. And when she finally gave up, Lord Krishna by and by opened his mouth, wherein the mother found all the universes situated. Seeing this, she was doubtful in her mind, but she was convinced in a different manner of the mystic nature of her son. Purport. One day, Lord Krishna, as the naughty child, disturbed his mother, Yashoda, and she began to tie up the child with ropes just to punish him. But no matter how much rope she used, she found it always insufficient. Thus, she became fatigued. But in the meantime, the Lord opened his mouth, and the affectionate mother saw within the mouth of her son all the universes situated together. The mother was astonished, but out of her deep affection for Krishna, she thought that the Almighty Godhead Narayana had kindly looked after her son just to protect him from all the continuous calamities happening to him. Because of her deep affection for Krishna, she could never think that her very son was Narayana, the personality of Godhead Himself. That is the action of Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord, which acts to perfect all the pastimes of the Lord with His different types of devotees. Who could play such wonders without being God? Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 2, Chapter 7, text in the matter of the scheduled incarnations, text 30. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Gyananjanashlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtham Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tham Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padhan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namaum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nitaikapa Pradayine Gaura Katha Damadaya Nagragramatarine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadana Daseti Namine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyati Deshatarine Anchakalpattarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Etkripatamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinatharinam Etkripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Syat Shri Chaitanyam Namamitam. So here in this canto, we are given a glimpse into Krishna's pastimes, which will be elaborated upon in great detail in the 10th canto. So here, Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna is being portrayed, we're getting a glimpse into Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna. Kunti Devi prays that fear personified is afraid of Krishna. But when Mother Yashoda was chasing Krishna with a stick, at that moment he was afraid. Although fear personified is afraid of him. And then she says, who can understand these pastimes? So, Krishna loves to be controlled. We hate to be controlled. So, Krishna loves to be controlled. That is his outstanding characteristic. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that out of all his characteristics, the most outstanding characteristic of Krishna is Bhakta Vatsalya, his affection for his devotees. So he absolutely delights in being controlled by Krishna, by his devotees. So you can see here, the moment Mother Yashoda begins to wonder, what's this? That, okay, is he? She gets bewildered for a moment, seeing all the universes within his mouth. So immediately Krishna wonders, oh, she's not going to control me anymore. So immediately Yogamaya takes over. So that Krishna can maintain his desire to be controlled by his mother's love. So at the same time, our acharyas have explained that these pastimes of the Lord are also instructive for all of us. We see how Mother Yashoda was trying to bind Krishna repeatedly, but every time that she tried, she was failing. Even though she brought so much extra ropes she brought in to tie him, still she could not do it. So Racharyas explained that, okay, finally she does it. So Racharyas explained that it is to be always 2 fingers short. So one finger refers to our efforts, and the other finger refers to the mercy of Krishna. So it is by the mercy of Krishna and by our efforts together, the combination, that we practice pure devotional service. So that's the instructive value in that. That's the instruction for us in that pastime. And one more thing, we can see that great sages, so many personalities throughout history. History means billions of years, trillions of years. Okay, so they've all tried to get liberation, right? Not necessarily pure devotional service, liberation. So very difficult. It takes one lifetime. Liberation is very, very difficult. So they undergo so much difficulty to get that liberation. So Krishna is called Mukunda, the giver of liberation. Yet the love of his devotees is so powerful that the giver of liberation himself becomes bound. So that's why when someone looks at these pastimes without the mercy of the acharyas, the intimate associates of the Lord, we always get bewildered with these kind of pastimes. What to speak of us? Even Lord Brahma got bewildered, seeing Krishna acting like an ordinary cowherd boy, eating foodstuffs from his friend's plates, which is not, according to the rules of cleanliness, you're not supposed to eat somebody else's remnants and things like that. But Krishna doesn't care. He's with his friends, he's just enjoying. So even Brahma gets bewildered. This is God? So therefore, our eyes and our limited experience can always be very bewildering. So we need to take the help of the acharyas, how to understand. That's one thing, how to understand. The second thing is how to practice. Okay, we can hear from the acharyas that these are not ordinary pastimes. Hearing itself is purifying, of course, but the acharyas have also prescribed the ninefold practices of bhakti, of which Shravanam and Kirtanam are the most important. Now it is explained, of course, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they were eternal associates of the Lord. But Shukadeva Goswami, while describing the friends of Krishna, and Prabhupada is very fond of lecturing on that topic. So I'll just bring up a brief reference and then I'll just go on to explain what I wanted to say. This is in Vrindavan, this is in New Delhi. Prabhupada is talking on Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 6, 12th of November 1973. When Krishna is playing with the cowherd boys, Shukadeva Goswami is describing, Ittam satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya shritanam naradharakena sakam vijahrutu krita punya punjaha. These boys, krita punya punja means they have acquired volumes of the results of pious activities. Now they have been allowed to play with Krishna. So who is this Krishna? Ittam satam brahma sukhanubhutya. This boy Krishna, he is the target of the Brahma Sukha. Brahma sukhanubhutya. He is the worshipable Lord of the devotees. Dasyam gatanam paradaivatena and maya shritanam naradharakena. Those who are maya shrita, within the clutches of maya, they are thinking he is an ordinary boy, but he is not an ordinary boy. So by Krishna consciousness, we're constantly thinking of Krishna as Krishna advises, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru, 1865. If you dovetail your whole life to these principles, thinking of Krishna, Manmana, to become devotee of Krishna, Madbhakta, Madhyaji, to worship Krishna, and to simply, if you cannot do anything either for or one, if you can simply come and offer your obeisance to Krishna, you are getting the benefit. So Prabhupada goes on to say, in this way, if you remain touched with Krishna, that is the perfection. Some way or other, you remain touched with Krishna. These are the processes. So, Prabhupada is explaining, first of all, that these boys, the krita punya punjaha, they have accumulated heaps of pious activities. Pious activities does not mean the pious activities of karma kanda. Here the word punya, actually in the Bhagavatam, several words, like for example, atma can also refer to the body sometimes. So it could refer to the mind. So similarly, punya could also refer to devotional activities performed in past lifetimes. So this is what is being referred to here when it says krita punya punjaha. They have accumulated heaps of pious activities. So what is our qualification? I mean, first of all, to come to the line of pure devotional service is not ordinary. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. So after many births, Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Many births, one finally surrenders to Krishna, thinking he is sarvamiti, Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Such a soul is very rare. Very rare. Now Krishna is saying it's very rare, but then what's going on? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, can we really think it's so rare? Because we have hundreds and thousands and millions of devotees. I mean, is it really so rare? So this is an extraordinary thing that's going on. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. it is the only time in the history of the world, once in a day of Brahma, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, and what is rare, suddenly it becomes a little difficult to understand. Is it really so rare? No. So then we need to think that, as Prabhupada would often say, I am placing you on the High Court judge's seat. You sit on that seat and acquire the qualifications. So that is the phenomenon which is happening. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he distributed to everybody, whether there is qualification, no qualification, nothing. In fact, it is the exact, the most bewildering thing is, as Narottam Das Thakur says, if you are most unqualified, then you get Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So it is far beyond the conception of the conditioned mind. And people work so hard to get into prestigious universities, prestigious jobs, so much hard work, qualification. Imagine if suddenly if they announce that if you have failed in all your exams, then you'll get entry first, this is something which the ordinary mind cannot conceive of. So Lord Chaitanya, that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would say that there has never been and there will never be followers like the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this, when we hear this Krita Punya Punjaha, we should think we have been fortunate that we have not accumulated heaps of pious activities, but we have been given the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, who took the trouble to leave Vrindavan and travel all over the world, encountering so much difficulty just for us. There is a very beautiful pastime where there is a very young girl, and she asks Srila Prabhupada that why is it that the Krishna Consciousness movement did not come to the West or did not spread before this? Why is it happening now? And Prabhupada says, because you were not yet born. So we should consider our great fortune that we have been given. Srila Prabhupada, by his efforts and with the help of his followers, has established the Krishna Consciousness movement around the whole world just for us. So when Prabhupada, as I just quoted from the lecture, when he says, think of me, when Krishna says, think of me, worship me, and all that, so we should study Prabhupada's teachings very carefully to understand how to practice devotional service. So sometimes when you go on Govardhan Parikrama, if you stop by at some places like Govinda Kund, example, Radha Kund especially, of course, that everybody knows, but even Govinda Kund, you could see some small kutirs, small thing. And when you pass by, these people, these devotees, they say Hare Krishna. And if you happen to go and meet any of them and talk to them, you may realize that they were former ISKCON devotees. So I once had a conversation, several years ago, I had a conversation with a devotee. He had served many years in ISKCON. I didn't know him, but he told me his history. So then I asked, why did you leave ISKCON? He said, oh, it's very difficult. So much politics, imperfect leaders, neophyte devotees, too much. The mind is too distracted. So, this is so nice. See, go in the Kund, I'm able to chant 64 rounds. I don't think about money and all this kind of things. So, externally, all this may seem very, very convincing externally. But if we study Prabhupada's books, we understand that we are not qualified for this. We are not qualified for this. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote a whole book actually called Vaishnava K, where he explains that our desire to imitate Haridas Thakur and other great personalities, he says that this is called imitation, and he says that in the name of chanting 16 rounds, as Prabhupada would often say, these Babajis, not everybody, of course, in general, a great majority of them, Prabhupada would say they are simply interested in women. They are thinking, when will the next woman come? So, and the women also, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, that they think to have association with have physical association with a sadhu is very extraordinary or whatever. To have a child by a sadhu is extraordinary. So these people also come. So it's a society of the cheaters and the cheated. So this is the vision that has been given to us by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he says that this whole thing, you're always thinking of name, fame, profit, adoration, distinction. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that this is like the stool of a hog. In fact, the hog eats stool. So you can imagine the stool of a hog. So it's like it's the most abominable thing ever that you can find on earth. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that this desire to do Nirjan Bhajan is simply cheating. It's all for name, fame, profit, adoration, distinction. And in ISKCON there used to be a song. There is a song, I guess, still. Name, fame, glory, same old story. So this is what happens when we try to do things with our own intelligence. But for us, Krita Punya Punjaha means to do exactly what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do. We are called the Sarasvatas. Prabhupada specifically writes the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are not even Rupanugas. Yes, we are Rupanugas, but within Rupanugas, we specifically characterize ourselves as the Sarasvata Rupanugas. What are the Sarasvatas doing? They are interested in book distribution. They are interested in Sankirtan. They are interested in preaching. So this is what distinguishes the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati from the others. Therefore, we are called the Sarasvatas. Now, I want to just bring up something which is very relevant to us, and Prabhupada himself directly giving instructions on how to look at things. And this is when Prabhupada brings his disciples to Vrindavan, Kartik of 1972, and he is giving his famous Nectar of Devotion lectures. If you hear those lectures, unbelievable, they're out of the world. So it's there on tape. So this is in Vrindavan, October 17th, 1972. Prabhupada had come to Vrindavan to observe the Kartik season from October 16th to November 14th. He planned to lecture daily at the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami in the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple, speaking from the Nectar of Devotion. His own translation of Rupa Goswami's book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. On his western tour, he had invited devotees to join him for Kartik in Vrindavan. And now a few dozen devotees from America, Europe, India, and other parts of the world had gathered to be with him. Okay. Now, this is not the time, this is also the time that the Vrindavan project was taking shape. Prabhupada had come to Vrindavan not only to lecture, he wanted to begin construction on his new property. Meanwhile, this actually chapter in the Leelamrita is called the Battle for Bombay. The Bombay difficulties are going on, and Prabhupada is trying to start his property in Vrindavan. Every day he would have the devotees hold a Sankirtan procession from the Radha Damodar temple to the property at Ramanreti. He would also go out occasionally to see the site. Still nothing more than grass huts, a wire fence, and a small stock of building materials. Now you can hear carefully. Of course, I presume you are hearing so far carefully. You can hear this even more carefully. Subala, the disciple in charge of construction, was slow and reluctant. And Prabhupada sent for Tamal Krishna Goswami to come from Bombay and take charge.
Early one morning, Subala left the land at Ramandreti, where he had been staying, and approached Srila Prabhupada on the roof of the Radha Damodar temple. Prabhupada, he said, I'm having so much difficulty. I don't have time to read. I can't chant my rounds properly. I can't think of Krishna. I'm always thinking of how this contractor is cheating us. Or I'm thinking of signing checks for labor and materials. It's just too much. All these things on my mind are stopping me from thinking of Krishna. Now the proposition here is, Prabhupada, as I read earlier, he's saying Manmana, Mahabhakto. So he's saying, he's repeating Krishna's things, always think of Krishna. Now Subala is saying, all these things on my mind are stopping me from thinking of Krishna. Prabhupada replies, do you think Arjuna was simply meditating on Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Prabhupada replied, do you think Arjuna was sitting in yogic trance while on the battlefield? While on the battlefield Krishna worked? No, he was fighting. He was killing for Krishna. He was thinking of all the soldiers he had to kill for Krishna. Thinking of the checkbook, thinking of the men, thinking of the contractors. This is also like Arjuna's thinking. This is Krishna's service. You should not worry about thinking of Krishna directly. Arjuna wasn't sitting before Krishna in a trance, meditating on his form. He was engaged in Krishna's service. Similarly, this is Krishna's service, and you should engage. Your life is full of Krishna's service, and that is very good. It's not over. Subala was still unsatisfied. He complained to Prabhupada that the other devotees wouldn't cooperate with him. He wanted to go into seclusion in Vrindavan for the rest of his life and chant, instead of becoming a full-time preacher in ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada asked, what do you mean no one will listen to you? You think that means they are defective? No. You are defective. Prabhupada raised his voice. If you are preaching and no one will listen, don't think you should go away in disgust and save yourself by chanting. No. And then Prabhupada says, that is not our line. So this is not the Saraswata line. We must qualify ourselves so they will listen. Do you know the story of Mr. Bhisham? Subala shook his head. No one would buy his medicine. Prabhupada continued. So he became anxious. Still he tried. And one day a man approached him in his shop and asked if he had any Bhisham's powder. And in excitement that someone had asked for his medicine, he died. Similarly, better we spend our whole life and die just to make one person Krishna conscious. That is our life. To become so absorbed in preaching Krishna, whether in Vrindavan or anywhere. We must save all these asuras from destroying the world. So Prabhupada very clearly explains, you see, he is not willing to concede to anything. He simply says that our line is the preaching line. And to carry on the preaching mission, there may be so many difficulties. And Prabhupada knew that. Therefore he said, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate together. And that may be very difficult, and Prabhupada knew it. Therefore he said, Your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate together. There is that famous instance during Srila Prabhupada's physical presence. One of his followers, Siddha Swarupananda, he was a guru before he joined Srila Prabhupada. So after he joined Srila Prabhupada, all his followers joined with him. And they were quite critical of how the GBC were managing things and this whole book distribution emphasis and so many different things. So Prabhupada, they came and met Prabhupada. There is that very famous conversation where they meet Prabhupada and Prabhupada they say that we want to work under you directly. And Prabhupada is okay even with that. That okay, if you cannot work with the GBC, work with me directly. You know. And but he says the fruit should be the same. He didn't want them to change what he had given. But the interesting thing is, during that conversation, Rameshwar Prabhu is in the room and he asks a very intelligent question. And he says, because they tell him to the effect, I don't recollect the exact words, but they tell him something to the effect that we love you, we want to listen to you, but we have trouble listening to the others. So then Rameshwar Prabhu asks this question, that you are saying that you like Prabhupada, you want to listen to what Prabhupada is saying, but you have trouble with the GBC. So he says, that Rameshwar Prabhu says, so it's Prabhupada who set up the GBC, and the Prabhupada is the one who asked us to listen to the GBC. So then he says, so if Prabhupada set up the GBC, and Prabhupada asked us to listen to them, and you're saying that you want to listen to Prabhupada, still would you not listen? Now this is a very loaded question, and there was silence. There was no reply. And then Prabhupada, in his characteristic signature sarcasm, he says, just see. So he knew that there could be defects. He knew that the GBC is not perfect. He knew that they would make mistakes. He knew all these things. But the point was, Prabhupada set up a system to push forward the Sankirtan movement. And he had a certain vision. And he wanted us to be, we are all his soldiers. As Prabhupada would say, you're all sent by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He would say that very often. And he actually meant it. He was not saying out of some formality. So he was single-pointed. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurnandana. He said, when I read Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on that, then he understood. This is how we can succeed in Krishna consciousness. So take the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his life and soul. So that was what he was doing. So everybody that he recruited, he was interested in fulfilling the missionary vision of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is the Saraswata Rupanuga. So when we read about the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, the first thing that we need to remember is we are not Krita Punya Punjaha. We don't have all these qualifications to live in Vrindavan, to do all these kinds of esoteric practices of bhakti. Rather, we are simply preachers in the Krishna consciousness movement. Even the Krishna consciousness movement, sometimes we can just get into a chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, you're going back to Godhead. That's not enough. That's not enough. Every member, without exception, every member of the Krishna consciousness movement has to be a preacher also. We are both practitioners and preachers, preaching in some way or the other. Like when Mayapur had still not developed, very few visitors would come to Mayapur. And once Prabhupada was there, that was in the Bhajan Kutir, And when some visitor came by, very rarely, Janivas Prabhu thought, oh, visitors have come, let me go and get some Back to God magazines. He's the pujari, head pujari. He is thinking, oh, some visitors, let me go and distribute some book, to the visitor. So this is the mood of every member of the Krishna Consciousness movement. Whether they are even cooks, so what? They're cooking too. They say even an army runs on its tummy. So they're feeding the Sankirtan army. So every activity in the Krishna Consciousness movement is linked to preaching. And the foremost among all the preaching activities is book distribution. Someone recently remarked to me that during Prabhupada's time and soon after that, we had tremendous book distribution, a book distribution explosion. We didn't have so many devotees. We had some, relatively limited. But today, we have millions of devotees. But has the book distribution increased hundreds and thousands of times? No. So we need to examine what is going on. So there has to be, and of course, on the other hand, there was so much emphasis on preaching that practice and taking care of devotee family members were neglected. That was another wildness, some craziness that happened. But what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted, what Srila Prabhupada wanted was every member of the Krishna Consciousness movement should be properly situated and should preach. We say chant and be happy, right? So how can someone be convinced to chant and be happy when they don't see that we are happy? No, so we need to practice Krishna consciousness. Tivrena bhakti yogena. We cannot be happy if we don't practice tivrena bhakti yogena. It's just some superficial happiness, up and down. But if we want consistent, ever-expanding happiness, then our practice of bhakti has to be tivrena bhakti yogena. Follow what Prabhupada has given us very strictly. Then we'll be very happily situated. And when we means we along with our families, for those of us who are married and who have kids and things like that. So all of us have to be happily situated, then give out Krishna consciousness. This is our family business, as Vaisheshika Prabhu has called it in his book, the famous book, our family business. So this is our line. This is our line. So for us, Krishna consciousness means we have to both practice and we have to preach. And as Prabhupada says, Dr. Bisham's example, his powder. So even if we think, oh, what is really happening, it's not so much results. And what is all this? So much difficulty, hardly any results. Doesn't matter, as Prabhupada says. Even if one person becomes a pure devotee. So we shall never give up. We should not give up and we shall never give up. So this should be our mood, our attitude in practicing Krishna consciousness. So I think I'll stop there if there are any comments or questions, corrections.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, for a long time I got a very doubt in my mind. Actually, Brahma Sampradaya is the origin because the disciplic succession originally began from Brahma.
Yes.
Then why it is being named as Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya? Brahma, Narada, Vyasadeva, that is the rule.
Madhvacharya is also there in that line.
Madhvacharya is also there. Then why not we say, because originally we have Brahma Sampradaya,
yeah.
Brahma Deva.
Yeah. So, okay, see in the Madhva Sampradaya, they don't worship Radha Krishna. If you go to Udupi and the Madhva Sampradaya, they worship Krishna. So, the worship of Radha Krishna, especially, was introduced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, we are called Gaudiya because we are in the parampara of Madhvacharya, but we have the specific title of Gaudiya because we are the worshippers of Radha Krishna. That's why.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Vraja.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for such a Krishna conscious preaching spirit class. Thank you very much.
Krishna.
So, at the last of the lecture, you were telling that we have to chant and be happy.
Yes.
If people will see this, then they will be convinced. So we have to practice bhakti parallelly. When we are preaching, we have to practice also.
Yes.
So sometimes it is seen practically when we are preaching, then for preaching sake, sometimes some devotees, they are not very much concerned with purity also. So in that sense, what should we do? It is utmost important to think about or to maintain purity, or we have to give more priority for preaching, and sometimes for preaching we can compromise purity or...
A good question. Sometimes we think that our Krishna consciousness movement is very successful now, because look at the hundreds and thousands of people, who are chanting Hare Krishna. But if you actually look at Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Prabhupada, their definition of success is not that we make hundreds of people chant Hare Krishna. That is not the definition of success. In fact, Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, the point is to take the harvest home. Means like there is harvest in the fields, okay? There's a big storm, everything gets lost, right? So he would say the point is to take the harvest home, So Prabhupada is not very fond of numbers. He was very interested. He would say better 1 or 2 moons than, in fact, he said thousands of nonsense stars, he says. So Prabhupada is very, very insistent in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada said he left his body because he felt that there are too many neophytes in his mission. He left his body early, he says. So Prabhupada, Bhakti, in our line, we are not so much interested in numbers. So it's not a question of making hundreds and millions of people chant Hare Krishna, therefore our movement is a great success. No. Our movement is meant to teach people pure devotion service. Somebody can chant Hare Krishna and do nonsense also. I'm not talking about I'm talking about generally people are taking to, then I'll talk about practitioners of bhakti. But people may chant Hare Krishna, somebody may be chanting, like for example, my mother is chanting 8 rounds, but she does so many other things also. She does Kali worship and so many things going on. So is that the success? Is it a success that, can we define that, of course she is living in the Mayapur Dham now, wants to leave her body here. You have something there. But it's not enough if somebody just chants Hare Krishna. Our point is to make them take pure devotional service and make prema as the goal of their life. That is called success. At least those who want to attain prema as their goal of life. Not those who want to attain prema and kama and whatever. Those who have taken to the path of pure devotional service. That is the success. And to make people take to the path of pure devotional service, you have to be pure. So there is no necessity of getting confused about it, because our line is to make people into pure devotees. And if you don't practice that, if you think it can be compromised, then how are you going to make pure devotees? Word pure means without contamination. Yes, Prabhupada was considerate of people struggling and falling down. Once there was a letter, I think this is in Calcutta, where Prabhupada, there's a reporter, and Prabhupada had received a letter where one couple, they had written about all their struggles in Krishna consciousness, and but still they were doing their best. So when Prabhupada read that letter, there were tears flowing down his eyes. Then he looked at the reporter and he said, my disciples, they may struggle so much, but they'll never give up Krishna consciousness. That is a different thing. Somebody is struggling, but wanting to attain the goal of pure devotion. So that's acceptable. That's acceptable. Prabhupada was fine with struggles, but Prabhupada is not fine with philosophizing a struggle, in the sense that, everybody, anyway, we are all in Kali Yuga. Some fall down is expected. If you start thinking like that, that's a very big danger. We cannot expect that we'll be perfect. No, we should always think we should live by the standard that Prabhupada has set. Purity is the force, Prabhupada said. So if we are not able to follow this chant, we should be shameful. But we should continue. As Prabhupada writes in the purport to 3rd chapter, text 31 of the Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning of Krishna Consciousness, one may not be able to execute the injunctions of the Lord perfectly. But one should continue without a sense of defeat or hopelessness. Prabhupada specifically says there. So, we may be defeated, but we'll never give up. That is the point. That we should always keep the focus on pure devotional service. Okay, somebody may fall down. Okay, get up and do it again properly. So like that. That is acceptable. But for not philosophizing a fall down, saying, okay, it's okay, Krishna forgives, Prabhupada forgives, Prabhupada is very kind, somehow we can hold on to his dhoti. These are all, strange philosophies. Prabhupada did say you can hold on to my dhoti, but provided we reach at least the 70% that he wanted us to reach, which is somewhere between ruchi and asakti. Anyway, the point is that there is no substitute for our internal attitude and desire to practice pure devotional service. And once we give up that, everything is lost. But if somebody is not given up that, it's okay. Even if they're struggling, if they're preaching, that's fine. Yeah, if we are at the 9 o'clock mark, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Prem.